This video is part of a series where I openly praise and share memories of some of my all-time favorite albums. This video is going to look at a subgenre defining masterpiece. Let's go back to 2003 and remember Meteora from Linkin Park. In the year 2000, Linkin Park hit the scene hard with the smash hit Diamond Certified Hybrid Theory, which truly melded genres in a time of post-grunge and nu metal. A band with two singers, one completely based in hip-hop and flow, and the other loud with screaming and anger. On paper, it might have looked like a gamble, but in less than 12 months, just about everyone listening knew who Linkin Park was. Instead of following up with the new music right away, Linkin Park allowed their music to be remixed heavily, while also doing remixes themselves in Reanimation. This was a new concept to many people, and Reanimation, while confusing to some, was successful. I remember in 2002 many people wondering if Linkin Park would ever make a sophomore album and not knowing what to make out of Reanimation, just remixed old songs. Little did we know at the time that Linkin Park was working on new music, literally recording while on the road. In a behind-the-scenes video of making Meteora, the band talked about bringing recording equipment on the bus with them and being crammed together on the road while recording instrument tracks and bites. There wasn't a time when they weren't working on something related to the band. Then in early 2003, we finally got the next chapter of Linkin Park's legacy in Meteora. The true sophomore studio album from Linkin Park would sprout 5 radio singles, went 7 times platinum in the United States, and would sell over 24 million copies around the world, ranking the album as one of the top 10 best-selling albums in the 21st century. Meteora was massive. It not only lived up to the hype and crushed any doubters projecting sophomore slump, but also proved Linkin Park knew how to perfect something they were good at. Many people say that Hybrid Theory is the one true definitive Linkin Park album, but I stand by that Meteora took the strengths of Hybrid Theory, refined them, and amplified everything. If it's not obvious what I'm saying, I think Meteora is better than Hybrid Theory. I'm not the only one either. One of my favorite moments in the Rock Coliseum live streams is when the 4 of us all unanimously said Meteora was better than Hybrid Theory, and were shocked at the same time because no one knew we all felt the same way. Linkin Park had a monumental effect on rock fans in the early 2000s, and Meteora helped prove that 1, Linkin Park is not a one-album band, and 2, the style of rap rock could be done so well that music fans who didn't enjoy rock could get into it. This video is not so much of a review as it's going through memories of the album, tidbits, history notes, and just me being a fanboy. There's an unfortunate difference between this video of an all-time favorite and my past all-time favorite album videos. And what it is that I'm limited to what clips I can show because WMG, Warner Music Group, owns the rights to Linkin Park music and music videos. So if I play an uninterrupted clip for longer than 4 seconds, someone from WMG will manually go through my video, claim it, and block the video worldwide. It's happened before with WMG music, not a joke. WMG is out of control with that. That being said, please check out some of the Linkin Park music videos from Meteora. The links are in the video description below. I'm not going to cover Collision Course or the many underground cuts that the Linkin Park put out because this video would then be 2 hours long. This video is meant to talk about Meteora, the original album, and how great it is. Sorry for delaying the track by track, but if I don't explain that right now, I'll get over 100 comments complaining why I didn't address every little tidbit like that. And I don't think you want a 2-hour video. That being said, let's talk about the music. After a 13-second intro forward, we start Don't Stay, and I feel this is the perfect bridge between Hybrid Theory from years before to the next chapter in Meteora. This points out my theory of taking the strengths of Hybrid Theory and refining everything to make something stronger. The guitar riff and turntable intro leaves a lasting impression, leading to Chester kicking down the door. It's a big way to start off an album, and at the time in 2003, a huge statement. Don't Stay definitely hits the hard rock style strong before more rap elements come later in Meteora. Oddly enough, Shinoda said this song originally had a reggae and Spanish guitar vibe during the writing process. I'm not even sure if reggae in Linkin Park would have been a seller, but keep in mind, this was 2003 Linkin Park. They could have done anything and made it work. That hard edge on Don't Stay still holds up as a great rock track. The song is also one of several on Meteora that was played on a drop beat guitar tuning, which is pretty unique. Linkin Park would play this song live for years at concerts until their library became bigger. And then we get to one of the biggest songs Linkin Park has ever made. Keep in mind that Somewhere I Belong was the first single from the album and only song promoted before the album was released, and that it was released less than 2 weeks before the album came out in March of 2003. I honestly feel it was the right call to release the new song this way and keep the excitement to buy the new album as fast as possible because it was still fresh in everyone's mind over such a short a period of time. It would not take long for Somewhere I Belong to become a success. The song went platinum in the United States, went to #1 on several Billboard charts, and charted highly in over a dozen countries. I love this song. The remix sample of guitar chords opening the track, Mike Shinoda's delivery that is sharp but not overpowering, Chester making the chorus soar, and a bridge that feels like a true peak. It has so many elements of good songwriting in this structure while keeping great lyric writing. Again, Chester's chorus is striking, and I truly feel this song has a big part in why Meteora had such a huge first week in sales. Years ago, Mike Shinoda talked about Somewhere I Belong being one of the first songs by Linkin Park where the lyrics were a bit more optimistic in the end, looking forward in hope after things were bad. That shows here. Rock fans across the board loved this song, and it was played everywhere. TV spots, sporting events, church dances, everywhere. Yes, I'm serious. Church dances. I went to a church dance in my youth where they played this song, and I didn't complain, but I can tell it didn't quite fit the feeling, and there were a lot of very confused, awkward youth not knowing what that music was. I loved it though. Lying From You is by far one of my most played tracks from Meteora over the years. The track was released as an album's airplay-only single in 2004, meaning it wasn't sold as a single, and had such success on the air that the band eventually had to make a live footage music video to accompany the track. Many people may not know this, but this is one of those songs that Linkin Park wrote and worked on while on the road, touring through the US, promoting Reanimated, and still in the hybrid theory cycle. They were able to cram in recording equipment on that bus, and they just used their time to write songs like Lying From You. I love this song, just like Somewhere I Belong. Everything from the keyboard sample in the beginning to the hard riff and that perfect balance between Chester and Mike makes this song a perfect showcase of what Meteora has to offer. The song is all about subliminally making reasons to get away from someone, doing whatever you can to push them away. Some of the lines from Mike Shinoda are great, and his flow is deep and fierce. Tonally, it's a great change in sound from Somewhere I Belong and Don't Stay. The rap side comes out just enough to bounce with the rhythm. This is a case of me loving a song from the first few notes, and it's still buried in my memory of blasting this song in my car at 16 on my Iowa head unit through off-brand subs on a badly wired amp. Tons of distortion, way too much rattle in the speakers, and me singing along with every note. That's pretty much the standard of every 16-year-old that has some type of car and car stereo. They have to listen to it that way. Hit the Floor was described by Mike Shinoda as a rock vibe on top of a hip-hop beat. The song is about people who look down at everyone and how they can't stay on top forever and eventually get knocked down and hit the floor. 1 minute you're on top, the next you're not. It's a unique transition in style, going from an amazing flow with more of a rock feel in Lying From You to a more prominent beat and hip-hop style on this song, but it works wonderfully. When you think about how tracks are laid out in an album, the song progression and style can be complicated, especially when you are working with a unique style that Linkin Park has. Hit the Floor fits as a transition after 3 huge songs and does not feel like filler in any way, even if the song was not a big single like many tracks on Meteora were. Chester screaming the word "gone" is almost deafening, and the guitar riffs are simple but effective. Easier to Run comes in and slows the pace and settles the anger down a bit. This song is much more reflective than full-on fury and unbridled rage. Chester actually works a little of the flow in some of the verses, and Mike works as a connector. The soft guitars and beat in the music adds a much-needed variety from the heavier side of almost every track before Easier to Run. The drum track from Rob Bourdon is killer on this song. The man really does not get enough credit as a consistently solid drummer over the many years and style changes of Linkin Park. Easier to Run was played a lot in live shows back in 2003, but was quickly dropped after the initial tour and after the album release, and was not played live after that, along with Hit the Floor. Understandably, this song probably isn't the biggest hype-up song to hear at a live show, but I still think it works on the album. And then comes another song that is one of the biggest tracks Linkin Park has ever put out. Faint was that song on Meteora that when I first heard it, I started replaying it to the point of insanity. And I'm positive I'm not the only one who did that when they first heard Faint as well. It's under 3 minutes long, and it goes by in an instant. Faint was certified platinum as a single, charted at #1 on Billboard's mainstream rock chart, as well as doing decent on Billboard's Hot 100, and the song also charted in over a dozen countries around the world, and for good reason. Mike Shinoda said years back that this was his favorite song to play live. Faint was born from Brad Delson using his guitar to record scratch tracks and create a fast tempo for the song. Brad, Mike, and everyone else went from there. While Faint wasn't as successful commercially as Somewhere I Belong, it still held up as a staple for the band and a standout on Meteora. The song encapsulates what Linkin Park was able to do at the time, in proving they could improve on the methods of hybrid theory and make them better, make a more complete song while keeping it short and impactful, but still not straying away from the style that made them famous. My favorite personal story about Meteora comes the day after the album came out. I bought it from Target the day it came out, and the next day I brought it to school with me on my portable CD player. After listening to it while working out in gym and trying to run track while holding it level so it doesn't skip, it had that anti-skip protection that never worked, I brought it to the lunchroom with me, and I was listening to it, kind of ignoring everyone else because I was just lost in my own world. And there was a kid that I knew sitting across from me named Nick, and he looked at me and goes, "Are you listening to the new Linkin Park?" Because he just knew somehow, and I said, "Yes, and I love it." So he looks at me and goes, "What's it sound like?" And this was the first song I played for him, because he had only heard Somewhere I Belong before. He put my crappy little earbuds in, and his eyes just blew up, and he says, "Oh man, this song gives me the tingles." And it kind of was like that for me too. Faint had that effect on everyone the first time they heard it. Figure 9 comes in after a hard song to follow in Faint, but does a great job at keeping the energy going. Originally, Figure 9 was going to have more of a hip-hop and rap style to it, but they decided to blend the song a bit more with singing. I think Figure 9 is an underrated track in Linkin Park's discography. Mike sounds solid without as much volume in his voice, but is still very clear. Chester does a great job with his singing, and the chorus is screaming. The guitar effects add an extra layer to the riffs, which make the song stand out a bit more. The bounce in the verses and the riffs all lead to big moments in the choruses. The anger and aggression come into the second half, and this song is like easier to run, and that it may not be a concert staple or a huge single, but it still definitely works on the album. Breaking the Habit is a big reason as to why Meteora's shelf life was so long. The track wasn't released as a single for over a year after the album release. The 5th single from the album also reached #1 on the mainstream rock chart, was certified gold as a single in the United States, and had a killer music video, which I wish I could show you, but WMG would try to steal the video and monetization if I do. This is where Chester really shines with his performance. It's also unique with the string section and piano included on an album dominated by guitar riffs, screaming, rap, and record scratching. While it's Chester that shines on the song, the lyrics were originally written by Mike before he even met Chester. The song revolves around a friend of Shinoda's and their past substance abuse. It's something that Bennington could relate to, and it definitely comes through in the performance. I love the song. I think the impact it has in different moments with both the softer and louder singing, all while keeping one sweeping progression, is amazing. Chester letting it all out with "I'll Never Fight Again" is still as much of a memorable note as it was the first time I heard it. I remember being in the car when Breaking the Habit came on in 2004 and thinking at the time, wow, they're still playing Linkin Park music like it's new, even though the album had been out for a year at that point. That's the staying power Meteora had due to so many songs that worked on radio and rock and just popular music in general. It's hard to get that now, if ever, especially off a sophomore album from a young band. From the Inside was the 4th release single from the album and charted in several nations, but not in the US, oddly enough. The song came about when Phoenix wanted to work a song at a different time signature, and this was the result after some playing around. Lyrically, this song is quite bitter and haunting. And I mean, yeah, it's Linkin Park, of course it would be, but this one much more so. Mike is lower in tone, and Chester moves the pace along and takes much of the focus. The guitar work and bass are thick and low, which I feel helps Chester sound higher in tone, and it's a good dynamic that results. From the Inside may not have been my choice as a single from the album, but it did work in the end. Commercially, it may have been the least successful single and shortest lived on the airways, but it still had a big impact on listeners, especially overseas, and carried on the success of Meteora. Nobody's Listening flips things around and lets Mike take center stage a bit more. The looped Japanese flute combined with a hip-hop vibe makes it sound like it's coming straight out of a modern martial arts fight film. The song definitely sticks out in a different way from the rest of Meteora and was even described by Shinoda as an island detached from the mainland. In my opinion, this adds a refreshing feeling to just nod your head and sing along with while not being dragged into misery and anger like other songs, despite the lyrics of Nobody's Listening still being quite angsty. This is what I feel is a simple, fun song, while demonstrating Shinoda's tight flow ability, and Chester sounds good here also. The mixing and sampling is great. Sometimes when a song feels like a left turn on an album, it can derail the progression, but on Nobody's Listening, it still feels like it's completely holding up the identity of Linkin Park. In session, Reanimation, we get to hear Joe Hahn take the reins. Many people don't realize that Session was nominated for a Grammy in 2004 for Best Rock Instrumental Performance. That's an impressive feat considering how much of the track consists of samples and scratching and recorded instruments not being played in unison with each other. Describing the song would be a waste of time to describe sample inclusions and flow meters, but needless to say, it's worth hearing. Hahn is a creative genius who is behind so much of the music videos, art design, sampling, production, just about everything. So much is done by Hahn, who does not get enough credit. And we finally end with a big exclamation mark. Numb, the third single to come from Meteora, I feel was the spiritual successor to a song like Crawling. But where Crawling didn't have the strongest lyric writing and hasn't aged greatly, Numb still holds up many years later. The song charted at number 1 on several Billboard charts for weeks straight, as well as going to number 11 on the Billboard Hot 100. At a time where hard rock had already slipped away from the limelight in popular music, Linkin Park getting to number 11 on that chart is a huge deal. I've seen some people say that they aren't sure about Numb being the closer on the album, but in my mind it does add that previously said exclamation mark. Some of the lyric lines are emotional statements that express a lot. To this day, whenever I hear the word smother, I think of the full line, "Can't you see you're smothering me? You're holding too tightly, afraid to lose control." Add that with the big chorus line of "I've become so numb," and I think it's with a song like this on an album like Meteora that Linkin Park proved they would always be a big deal. The next big thing became the big thing. Numb went 4 times platinum in the United States, not including the remix with Jay-Z, and it's still haunting to hear those keyboard notes open and close the track. Numb is an emotional hook that really hits just about every time I listen to it. Chester's singing is strong on this track, and I think Numb, while very different from the previous single Faint, still is a big song from a wildly talented group of men. And when you play Meteora from beginning to end on those final notes of Numb, it somehow makes you want to hear the whole album over again instantly. Meteora proved the chemistry between Chester and Mike after Hybrid Theory, and proved that Linkin Park could get as heavy as they wanted, and the music more than stands the test of time. I get those arguments about Meteora not being different enough from Hybrid Theory. Well, I think it's stronger than Hybrid Theory, and this is an album you can play from beginning to end. I get that not every album after this from Linkin Park was exactly stellar. I've talked about later Linkin Park albums many times. That does not change how excellent Meteora is. I do want to point out a big question that many people have asked. Should Linkin Park continue on without Chester? I don't know. I think they're capable of it. And if they want to, I really do believe they'll be able to pull it off, but it's up to them. I also made a video a few years back about how we can remember Chester and Chris Cornell, and you can check it out right here in the info cards. But as for that original question, I think they're capable of it, but will they? Who knows? Linkin Park truly made a legacy in the early 2000s that others tried to duplicate and many failed miserably at. It was lightning in a bottle, and I still love going back to this album. I get that everyone will remember Linkin Park very differently, and everyone has their own favorite Linkin Park moments, but for me, Meteora is my favorite Linkin Park album and one of my all-time favorites. And that was a look at Linkin Park's Meteora. What's your favorite song on the album? Have any Linkin Park memories? Leave a comment and let people know. Big thanks to my patrons and a special thanks to Brandon Barenfeld, Chris Doman, and Dom Smith. You can have a say in videos like these and get perks by supporting Rocked on Patreon. Just $2 a month goes a long way. Find more info in the video description and info card in the top right of the video. Please subscribe to stay notified on upcoming videos and like this video if you enjoyed it. Check out my concert photography on Instagram, and you can keep up to date with Rocked on Facebook and Twitter.